I'm going to be brutally honest right from the start here. You're not going to magically reinvent yourself this week. You're not suddenly going to score 10 points higher because you discovered one magic trick on a forum at 11:52 p.m. But here's the good news. You don't need to. This final week is not about dramatic breakthroughs. It's about protecting the work you've already done. So what should this week actually be about? Two things. The first is avoiding unforced errors. Those are the silly, preventable mistakes that can wipe out months of effort. The second is to lock in your gains. You want to consolidate what you already know and make sure you can deliver it under pressure. Now, if you've been studying seriously, you've been taking practice tests, reviewing mistakes, and doing the uncomfortable work, you're ahead of most test takers already. So your new job this week is simple. Don't blow it. Treat this week like you're tapering off before a race. You've already done the long runs. Now you need to rest, trust in your training, and show up sharp. Now you have the option to take the LSAT either in person at a Prometric testing center or remotely from home. And this is one of those things people think they understand until test day shows up and suddenly they're arguing with a proctor about whether their water bottle is too tinted. Let's fix that. Now, if you're taking the LSAT remotely from home, you are in charge of your setup, your environment, your tech, your lighting, and yes, even your bathroom schedule. Here's what is allowed. Of course, you're going to be using your own computer, so make sure it works. Charge it the night before. Update your operating system and your browser before test day, not 7 minutes before your start time. Now, you can have up to 6 sheets of 8.5 by 11 scratch paper. It can be blank, lined, or graph, but nothing torn from a spiral notebook with a jagged edge. Don't give the proctor a reason to question anything. As far as writing utensils, you can use a pen, a pencil, a mechanical pencil, or a highlighter. Go wild. As for drinks, you can have a beverage, but the catch is it's got to be in a clear, unlabeled container. Think mason jar, Tupperware bottle if that's a thing, or the boring plastic water bottles they sell at CVS. You can also use earplugs. They are totally fine, but they've got to be plain, simple foam earplugs. Nothing electronic, no noise canceling anything, definitely no Bluetooth. Now, speaking of Bluetooth, here's something that's not allowed. No headphones of any kind. Not over the ear, not in the ear, not just for comfort. They will ask you to remove them. And smartwatches, fitness trackers, external monitors, dual screens, Chrome extensions, none of that is allowed either. And by the way, also, you cannot move around. This is not a Zoom call where you can take your laptop into the kitchen. Your webcam has got to be pointed at your face the entire time. Now, here is a pro tip from our coaches. Set up your testing space the weekend before your exam. Run the system check, pick your chair, test your lighting, and figure out what exact angle the webcam needs to be. Then leave it alone and do not touch it. You want your testing environment to feel boring and predictable on game day. If you're still messing with your webcam position 5 minutes before go time, you're already rattled. Now, if you're taking the LSAT in person at a Prometric testing center, this is the corporate version of the LSAT. Think fluorescent lighting, vinyl chairs, and the faint smell of hand sanitizer. You're not going to have to bring much here. They're going to provide the essentials for you. But the trade-off is less control, more rules. Here's what you'll need to know. You are using their computer. Do not bring your own laptop or tablet. They're going to give you scratch paper. You can't bring your own, even if it's identical, no exceptions. They're going to give you pencils, usually standard number 2 pencils. They're also going to give you headphones, big over-ear noise-canceling ones. Now, I say noise-canceling because they're about as effective as putting 2 marshmallows on your ears and hoping for the best, but that's what you got. As for drinks, it's water only in a clear bottle, no logos, no labels, no drinks with color. That blue Gatorade is going to get you a hard no from the proctor. And they will give you a storage locker where you can lock up your phone, your wallet, your keys, lucky coin, whatever. Everything stays out of the room. Some other things to expect. You may, and you likely will, have to wait. Their check-in can take 20 to 40 minutes, so show up early. And you might get seated near someone who sniffles or breathes like Darth Vader, so bring patience with you. And bathroom breaks are only allowed during the official 10-minute break, and you've got to sign in and out. Again, this is not like a college exam where you can raise your hand and ask for a tissue. Once this section starts, you're locked in. One last thing here, read LSAC's instructions word for word. I know it's 7 paragraphs long and mostly bullet points, but it matters. Because the fastest way to ruin your test day is showing up with the wrong setup and getting flagged by a proctor. And trust me, when we work with students, we've seen people lose test time, get paused mid-section, and even have their scores held just because they missed a rule they thought was no big deal. Spoiler, it's always a big deal to LSAC. So please read the email, check the tech requirements, reread the section about government IDs, and make sure the name on your license exactly matches your LSAC registration, not Alex on one and Alexandra on another. LSAT test day is stressful enough. Don't add logistical chaos to the mix. Now, you know what really throws people on test day? It's not a hard question. It's not a weird reading comp passage. It's the moment when someone thinks the test is over and then another section starts. Let's not be that person. Here's exactly what to expect from the standard LSAT format if you don't have accommodations. You have your first section, 35 minutes, second section, also 35 minutes, then you get a 10-minute break, then you get 2 more 35-minute sections back to back. That's it. The total time is just under 2 hours and 30 minutes. Now, a few important things you need to know. First, the order of the sections is random. You're not going to know what section is coming first or second or last. You could start off with logical reasoning. You could start with reading comp. You could even start off with the unscored experimental section, which, by the way, looks exactly like a real section. But only 3 out of the 4 sections are scored. 1 is experimental. And the kicker is, you're not going to know which one it is. So don't waste your time trying to guess mid-test. Don't go, this reading comp seems weird. Maybe it's the experimental, so I'm not going to try as hard. That is a trap. Your job is to treat every single section like it counts. Because if you slack off and it turns out that was a scored section, you're cooked. Now, like I mentioned, you get a 10-minute break after the first 2 sections. That is your one chance to breathe, stretch, pee, splash water on your face, whatever. But this break is tightly timed. You don't get extra time just because you were almost back. So set a timer on your break if you have to. Don't get fancy here. Just be back in your seat and ready. Now, if you have accommodations like extra time or extra breaks or paper and pencil, your version will be different. For example, if you have time and a half, you get 53 minutes per section rather than 35. Whatever your setup is, practice under those exact conditions. Same timing, same rules, same environment if possible. And when we work with students, one of the most common mistakes we see is people practicing under normal conditions even though they're testing with accommodations. Then test day hits and their rhythm and pacing are completely off. Don't do that to yourself. On test day, you want to be in execution mode, not detective mode. You should never find yourself asking, wait, is there another section after this? Or is this the break? Or was that the experimental section? Those questions all waste brain power, and brain power is your most limited resource on test day. The students who perform best, they don't think at all about the format while they're testing because they already know it inside and out. So memorize your test day structure. Run practice tests that mimic it exactly, down to the minute, down to the break. You want the feel of the LSAT to be boring and familiar. No surprises. Just click in, click out, and you're done. Now let me say something that might go against everything you've been told about preparing for high-stakes exams. Studying every single day this week could actually make your score worse. I know it sounds like blasphemy, but stick with me here. The final week is not about effort. It's about recovery. Think about elite athletes before game day. They're not lifting heavy, running sprints, or maxing out on squats the night before. They're resting, they're hydrating, and they're sleeping. Because peak performance doesn't come from pushing harder. It comes from showing up fresh and focused. Same thing applies here. Let's say your LSAT's on a Friday. Here's what your week should look like in the lead up. Monday and Tuesday, you're only doing targeted practice where you pick specific weak areas like logical reasoning flaw questions or reading comp dual passages. Whatever you know still trips you up, and you're doing 1 or 2 timed sections per day at most. After each section, you do deep review, not just, I I missed that one, but you actually want to figure out, why was the correct answer correct? Why did I pick what I picked? And how can I avoid this mistake next time around? This is your last chance to reinforce patterns, not to learn new material. You're just sharpening the tools in your toolbox that you already have. Now, on Wednesday of this week, maybe you're taking an optional full-length practice test, but you got to ask yourself, would this make me feel calm and confident, or would I spiral into panic if it goes badly? If it sounds grounding and routine, do it. But if it sounds stressful or your self-worth might collapse if your score drops 3 points, then skip it. Seriously, taking one more test does not guarantee you're going to do better on the real thing. But burning out your mental focus right before test day will almost definitely make things worse. So if you do take that exam, do it under official conditions, timed with the 10-minute break, with the unscored extra section. You set up this exam exactly like your real one. And when it's over, don't review right away. Log the score, then walk away. Now, Thursday, the day before, listen to me here, do not study the day before the test. Don't just do one section, don't lightly review, don't skim some old notes, and don't watch a couple of lesson videos just to be safe. You will not learn anything new on Thursday that sticks, but you can spike your anxiety, throw off your sleep, and show up mentally fried. So take the day off fully. What does that look like? Sleep in a little. Not too late though, just enough to feel rested. Eat some good food, go for a walk, watch something funny, take a long bath, catch up with friends, do something that reminds your body, I'm okay and I'm safe. Now, if the idea of doing absolutely nothing makes your skin crawl, okay, you get 15 minutes. Do one question you've already reviewed. Skim an old reading count passage if you want to, and then put it down. You are not underprepared, you are over-revved. So Thursday isn't just about getting smarter, it's about getting calm. And we've seen with our students time and time again, those who score highest aren't the ones grinding to the last minute. They're the ones who walk in clear-headed, rested, and focused. Now let's talk about the psychological roller coaster of practice test scores, especially during the final week. You take a test on Tuesday, you get a 159. So panic sets in because your last score was a 167. You're thinking to yourself, what happened? And you start rewriting your whole study plan and you wonder if you should reschedule your test. You start Googling how to cram for the LSAT in 48 hours. Stop, breathe, you're fine. That low score you just got is not the truth. It's just a data point, one of many such data points. And in the final stretch, it's often the least accurate one. Here's what's happening behind the scenes. You're mentally and physically tired from weeks or likely months of prep. You're emotionally overloaded, knowing the real test is just days away. So you might be overanalyzing, second-guessing, or rushing. And frankly, you might be bored, especially with recycled practice material. Put that all together and boom, your score temporarily drops. But it doesn't mean you're regressing. It doesn't mean your progress was fake. It just means you're human and you're close to the finish line. So forget that last score. Instead, look at the average of your most recent 5 full-length practice tests. Not your highest, not your lowest, just the average. That number, your rolling average, is the best predictor of your test day performance. So if your last 5 tests were 166, 164, 162, 168, and 165, you're trending around a 165. And that's your actual level. Not the high end at 168 or the low end at 162, but smack in the middle, 165. That's the number you should build your expectations around. So when your cousin texts, how are you scoring? And you should say mid-160s. Not, I bombed my last test. Not, I'm hoping for a 175 out of nowhere. Instead, ground yourself in real data, not emotional overreactions. And everyone has a bad test story where they say, my dog barked during logical reasoning and I lost my place. Or the power flickered and I freaked out. Or my neighbor decided to vacuum the ceiling. Whatever it is, it happens. The score from that test isn't meaningful. It doesn't reflect who you are as a test taker. So don't spiral. You don't throw out your entire wardrobe just because one shirt didn't fit. Same thing with the LSAT. One weird score doesn't mean anything unless you decide it does. So let me reframe this for you. Your LSAT practice scores are not a verdict. They just show you the direction you're heading, not whether you're good or bad, smart or stupid, ready or unworthy. Trust in your overall trends, trust your prep, and trust yourself. Now, as for that question, should you take one more practice test a few days before the test? The answer is, it depends, but not in the wishy-washy, do what feels right kind of way. It depends on your emotional state, not your intellectual ability. Now, one more test might be a terrible idea if you're already feeling worn out, anxious, second-guessing yourself, or you're living off caffeine and old Reddit threads about scoring scales. If that's the case, then no, you should not take another practice test, because at this stage, your mental clarity matters more than drilling another 25 questions. If you do worse than expected, you might spiral. If you do well, you raise your expectations and then you're going to spiral when the real thing feels harder. Or if you hit a tech issue, get interrupted, or you lose focus halfway, you might spiral. So you see the pattern here. Taking a practice test in that headspace doesn't help you prepare. It just adds volatility to your mood. If you're already on edge, it's like riding a roller coaster with no seatbelt. It's unnecessary risk without any upside. Now, on the flip side, let's say you're feeling calm, focused, curious, and you want just one more dry run to keep your rhythm tight. Then, sure, take the test. But only if you follow these rules. Do it early in the week, because you want to allow time for recovery afterwards. Also, treat it like the real thing. Same environment, same timing, same rules. Use LSAC's Law Hub if at all possible. And don't overanalyze your results afterward. You're not trying to learn anything major from this test. You're just keeping your pacing and your timing sharp. Take the score, write down a few quick takeaways, and then move on. And by the way, no last-minute revenge tests. If it goes badly, don't try to squeeze in another one the day before to redeem yourself. That's not prep, that's panic. Think of your last practice test like a tune-up, not a full diagnostic. You're not taking it to make a breakthrough or prove anything. You're just keeping your engine warm. And if you choose not to take one, that's perfectly fine too. We've seen our students score in the 170s without taking a single test the week of, because their energy was better spent on resting, not testing. So ask yourself this: will one more test help me feel calmer and more prepared, or just more anxious? If the answer is more anxious, you already have your answer. If your answer is calmer, then go for it. But do it only once, early in the week, then rest. And either way, remember that you've already done the work. No single test this week is going to change your outcome. But your mindset, that might. Now let me say this loud and clear. You will be nervous, and you should be. That's normal, that's healthy, and it's expected. The goal is not to eliminate nerves. The goal is to not let them run the show. You've prepped, you've practiced, but your brain's still going to go, oh my God, what if I blank out on the first section? Or what if I don't finish reading comp again? And what if this one test ruins everything I've worked for? That's okay. That's not failure. That's your body getting ready to perform. Even Olympic athletes feel this way. The difference is they have a plan, and you need one too. Now here is a simple, battle-tested routine that works. We've used versions of this with hundreds of our students, and it makes a real difference. The night before, lay out everything. Your ID, your clothes, scratch paper, clear water bottle, login info, and your backup plan. Charge your laptop and any accessories if you're testing at home. Set multiple alarms: phone, watch, backup phone, maybe even an alarm clock. No risks. And avoid last-minute studying. Read fiction, watch a movie, do something unrelated to the LSAT. And this one's tough, but go to bed early. Even if you don't fall asleep right away, even just being horizontal helps. Morning of, eat a real breakfast with protein and carbs. Nothing new or risky, and no sugar bombs. This is not the day to try intermittent fasting for the first time. Also hydrate with water, not 5 cups of coffee. You don't want to spend section 2 vibrating uncontrollably in your chair. And dress for comfort. Soft layers, no scratchy tags, and socks that don't bunch up weirdly. Basically, pretend like you're dressing for a long flight. Comfort is more important than fashion. Nobody's going to be judging your hoodie. Now, 15 minutes before your test, try box breathing, where you inhale for 4 seconds, hold for 4, exhale for 4, and hold for 4, and repeat this process 3 times. This is going to lower your heart rate and reduce your stress hormones. Then shake it out. Shake your hands, roll your shoulders, loosen your jaw. Physical tension leads to mental tension, so do your best to let it go. And if you want, you could try the following mantra, something simple like, I know this test, I've prepared, and I'm ready to show up. Not to be cheesy, but a short, calm internal script can go a long way. Now, here's where most people go wrong. They think nerves means that something is wrong. So when they feel anxious, they panic about feeling anxious, and that's a trap. The people who perform best aren't the ones who feel totally calm. They're the ones who expect to feel off, and they know how to stay grounded anyway. And we've seen our students, including top scorers hitting 175 plus on their official LSATs, who were nervous wrecks before the test, but they had a plan. They knew that feeling would pass, and they knew what to do with it. You are about to sit down for one of the most important exams of your life. Of course your stomach is going to flutter, and of course your heart's going to race a bit. That's not weakness, that's readiness. The key is to acknowledge it and say, that's part of this, and I know how to handle it. Because you do. Now let's talk worst case scenario, because even if you've been studying for months, there's still a little voice in the back of your head whispering, what if I freeze up? What if I misbubble an entire section? What if everything goes wrong and I ruin my law school dreams in one day? Okay, deep breath. Let's walk through what actually happens if test day goes sideways. First, let's define bombing. You're probably imagining something dramatic where you misread half the questions, or you run out of time on 2 sections, or you completely blank on reading comp and start crying during the experimental section. But let's be honest, bombing doesn't usually look like that. Most of the time, bombing just means you scored 2 to 4 points below your average, or you didn't feel good during the test, or you had one section that rattled you and you couldn't recover. That's not a failure, that's just a below average day, and you can bounce back from that. Now let's talk logistics. If your LSAT doesn't go the way you wanted, here's what you can do. You can cancel your score, and if you opted into score preview, you can actually see your score before deciding whether to cancel. Either way, you have 6 calendar days after score release to decide. If you cancel, law schools will never actually see the score, but they'll probably assume it didn't go very well. And you can retake the test. The LSAT is offered 8 times a year, and even the February LSAT is not too late. Some schools will even take the results of the April and June LSATs to start law school later that same year. Now, if your score isn't terrible and it's close enough to your target, you might not need to retake. And some students score lower than their practice test average and still get into really great schools. But all else being equal, I do recommend retaking because law schools do not average multiple scores. They only take the highest, so there's really no downside to retaking, and one imperfect LSAT does not kill your chances. Now, most people don't believe this until they hear it 12 times, so I'm going to say it again. Law schools do not average your scores. They don't penalize you for taking it multiple times. They don't think, oh, this person took it 3 times. That's awfully suspicious. They think, what's your highest official score? Cool, let's move on. That's it. So even if your test is a disaster, you still have options. You can recover, you can regroup, and you can crush the next one. Here's the mindset we give our students before every test. This test is a snapshot. It is not a life sentence. It captures how you did on one particular day with one particular set of questions under one particular set of conditions. That's it. It does not measure your intelligence. It doesn't reflect your work ethic. It doesn't predict your entire legal career. And if you trip over it, you get up and you clear it next time. You're not out of the race, you're just reloading. Now here is a quick exercise you can do today. Ask yourself, if I'm not happy with my score, what's my next move? Will I retake in a month or 2? Will I cancel or keep the score and reassess? Do I have time to keep prepping for a retake? Answer those questions now while you're clear-headed. That way, if the test doesn't go the way you hoped, you're not scrambling or catastrophizing. You're just moving on to plan B. And that alone can take a huge weight off your shoulders going in. Everybody gives you tips on logical reasoning, timing strategies, reading comp pacing, section order, answer elimination, but no one tells you what to do once you've already done all that. So I will. If you've been showing up consistently, if you've done the practice tests, if you've reviewed your mistakes, if you've worked through frustration, self-doubt, and the question of why is this test even like this, then you've earned something really powerful. You're ready. Not ready in a perfect robotic way, and not ready in a flawless 180 or bust way, but ready in the way that actually matters. You've trained your brain to sit down and solve hard problems under pressure. You've learned how to keep moving even when you feel unsure. You've practiced staying focused even when your stomach flips. And you've shown up again and again even when it was uncomfortable. That's not luck. That's not guessing either. That's real prep. And now your job is simple. Trust the work. You don't need to feel confident the entire time. You just need to stay in it, calm, focused, moving forward, even when your brain says, wait, this section feels hard. Am I messing it up? Because every high scorer you've ever heard of had a moment during their test when they thought they were failing, and they kept going. That's the difference. At the end of the day, the LSAT doesn't just measure logic or reading comprehension. It measures your ability to stay focused under pressure, your ability to bounce back after a tough question, and your ability to trust your process even when your brain is screaming, this isn't going well. And guess what? Those are the same skills you'll use in law school and in your career and in high-stakes situations for the rest of your life. So even now, if you're nervous, if you're doubting yourself, just know you're building something bigger than a score. So take a breath, show up, run your plan, and know that you're not alone in this. We've worked with students at every level, and we've seen what's possible when someone sticks with it one section at a time. This is one moment, not your whole story. You've got this.